This is an NBC News special report. Here's Brian Williams.
Brian Williams back with you again. In addition to our ongoing coverage on the MSNBC network, we're coming on to let viewers on NBC know what we know as we are covering an extraordinary development. 32 days out from an election, the President of the United States has tested positive for COVID-19. I'm going to read from the statement as I see it. This came out under the heading of the press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. It is from Sean P. Conley, the physician to the president, who also happens to be a commander in the U.S. Navy. He writes, I release the following information with the permission of President Donald J. Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. This evening, I received confirmation that both President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. The President and First Lady are both well at this time. They plan to remain at home within the White House during their convalescence. The White House medical team and I will maintain a vigilant watch, and I appreciate the support provided by some of our country's greatest medical professionals and institutions. Rest assured, I expect the President to continue carrying out his duties without disruption while recovering, and I will keep you updated on any future developments. Couple of things to point out here as this news sinks in across our country and around the world. Will we see any more presidential debates? I think it's safe to say tonight that answer is no. What of the presidential campaign for re-election of Donald Trump will we see now? Completely unknown, but any travel schedule that's been put out for the next couple of days surely will be scrapped. The president's medical condition, as we saw the doctor say, will be closely watched, closely tracked. They have superb medical facilities at the White House, but it's not speculation to say that should there be any worsening in his condition, they will waste no time and will not hesitate to get him over to Walter Reed, where they have a full medical facility available, not just, of course, to veterans of the nation's military, but traditionally to treat our presidents as well. Repeating the hour's top story, Donald Trump, through his physician and press secretary, has announced the worst possible news. He has tested positive for COVID-19. This virus still running across our country in an uncontrolled pandemic. This virus that has claimed over 200,000 lives has now left him and the First Lady with a positive test result. This news first came out tonight when we heard the news that close White House aide Hope Hicks had tested positive and was indeed feeling symptomatic with COVID-19. We have had a number of physicians and experts dealing with us and guiding us through our coverage tonight. If you were aware and watching the coverage tonight, you noticed we entered a black hole of a couple of hours after the president did a live telephone interview with Sean Hannity, mentioning that he and the First Lady were going to be tested, mentioning the people who come into contact with the president on the road and how they cannot all be policed. He then mentioned on Twitter that he was going into a quarantine process, as he called it. We surmised, he had told us he was getting tested. We surmised further that the tests were being done and done again and done again, as a positive or negative result is nothing to fool around with. Dr. Vin Gupta, ER doc from the Pacific Northwest, who we have relied on for our coverage for these many months, is with us tonight. Doc, we've just learned this news, and in the last couple of minutes, we're trying to run through everything as it occurs to us. What does this mean to the presidential election? We can go ahead and assume that presidential debates in all likelihood will now be canceled. Presidential travel will likely now be canceled. We're 30 days out. What's running through your mind as a medical professional?
Brian, good to see you again. So many things. First of all, I want to make sure that the most important thing here is that the president and the first lady and everybody that might have been exposed, Hope Hicks, that they're doing okay. And so I'm glad to hear that it sounds like they're doing okay. Hope Hicks, I'd like to better understand what her symptom profile is. Having said all that, this raises the specter of when did Hope Hicks actually come down with COVID-19? When was she displaying symptoms? And let's retrace the steps then of her actions. Where was she? Because this is bigger than just the president, the first lady, their inner circle on Air Force One, every one of whom now must be quarantined, requisite 14 days, regardless of what the test shows. I'd want them to be quarantined for 10 to 14 days because this is a high-risk exposure. Brian, we were talking about this 45 minutes ago before the president's test came back positive. So that's number one. Let's retrace the steps because it's critical to do that for a few reasons. Did the vice president's team and everybody in Case Western, were they exposed? Because it's not hard to turn back the tape and say, my goodness, if Hope Hicks was symptomatic on Wednesday, say morning or afternoon, people, especially young people, go through a phase where they're what we call pre-symptomatic. And that can be for a period of time, 24 hours, who knows, it's uncertain based on the individual. They can be pre-symptomatic but infectious to others after they've been exposed. So you get exposed, then the virus incubates for as short as potentially 24 hours, and then you're maybe pre-symptomatic for who knows how long before you develop symptoms, if you develop symptoms. So Hope Hicks, if she was close to the president on the day of the debate, this changes the ballgame in terms of what the vice president's team should be doing. And then finally, I'll say, Brian, if the president's team knew that Hope Hicks was positive and that they were all in close contact with her, why did he go to an event today and willingly, volitionally, frankly, expose other individuals at a fundraiser? To me, I don't understand that. What's the medical advice that he's getting from Dr. Connolly and others? Who is encouraging him to do that? Because at that moment, when Hope Hicks turns up positive and symptomatic, that should have raised alarm bells and a 5-alarm fire that everybody should shelter in place until we get testing. And then even then, we should repeat testing over a period of time. So this is a big deal.